Need to master GED math fractions for the GED test? Then you're in the right place. Hi, this is Parker from Just Prep Champions, teaching you how to pass the GED fast. You can get started by clicking subscribe down below. In this video on fraction basics, first we're going to start by talking about what a fraction actually is. We're going to look at the numerator and the denominator of the fraction. We'll then discuss the three types of fractions: proper, improper, and mixed numbers. We'll also look at how to convert an improper fraction to a mixed number and vice versa. And we'll also look at fraction and decimal equivalents. So let's get started. So first, what is a fraction? A fraction uses two numbers to show a part of a whole. Again, a fraction uses two numbers to show a part of a whole. So in this example here, we see the fraction 7/8, 7 over 8. So there are two numbers in this fraction. The top number is what we call the numerator. The top number here is 7, so the numerator in this fraction is 7. And the bottom number in the fraction is what we call the denominator. So in this example, 8 is our denominator. Again, the denominator is the lower number in the fraction. So one way to remember that is to look at the letter D here. So think of the word downstairs. Both downstairs and denominator start with the letter D. So the denominator, you can think of that as being downstairs. Again, denominator, downstairs. The denominator is the lower number in the fraction. So what is the denominator and what is the numerator and what do they mean? Well, the denominator tells you how many equal parts there are in the whole. And the numerator tells you how many parts of the whole you're working with. So for example, let's look at this pizza here. So if you count these up, you'll see that there are 8 slices in this pizza. So let's assume that these slices are all equal in size here. So again, there are 8 slices here in this pizza. So the whole pizza has 8 parts to it. So to write this as a fraction, we would want to put 8 in the denominator because, again, the denominator tells you how many equal parts there are in the whole, and we see that the whole pizza has 8 parts to it, and we're assuming that these parts are equal in size. And so now if we look at this pizza here, we see that this one slice here has been cut out of our pizza. So I'm going to highlight or trace this pizza slice here. And so let's say that you eat this slice of the pizza. So you've eaten this slice of the pizza and you see that there are 7 parts left. So if we wanted to write the fraction of pizza slices that are left, we would write 7 over 8. And again, that's if we assume that we take out this one slice of pizza that I've traced here, we're left with 7 slices of pizza. So there are 7 parts left here. So we'd write the 7 in the numerator, and there are 8 parts in that whole, so that's why we have the 8 here. So again, the denominator tells you how many equal parts there are in the whole. Since there's 8 equal pieces here in the whole, we put the 8 in the denominator, and the numerator tells you how many parts of that whole you're working with. So if we eat this pizza slice and we're left with 7 slices here, we're working with 7 slices, so the numerator is 7. For the GED test, there are 3 types of fractions that you have to know: proper fraction, improper fractions, and mixed numbers. So here we have an example of all 3 types. So the first example here is 2/3, 2 over 3. So 2/3 is a proper fraction. So what is a proper fraction? Well, in a proper fraction, the top number of the fraction is smaller than the bottom number of the fraction. In other words, in a proper fraction, the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So 2 is the numerator here, and we see that 2 is smaller than 3, which 3 is our denominator. So the other thing about a proper fraction to note is that it's always equal to a number that is less than 1. So that's what this symbol here means, less than 1. So for example, if you ever want to convert a fraction into a decimal, all you have to do is just put the top number to your calculator, hit division, and then hit the lower number in the fraction, and then hit equal. So for example, you would do in the calculator 2 divided by 3, and that's going to give you 0.666666 repeating, and so let's round that to 0.67. So in your calculator, if you do 2 divided by 3, you're going to get 0.67 if you round it. All right, and so we see that 0.67 is a number that is less than 1. So now let's look at the improper fraction here. So the improper fraction is the reverse of the proper fraction in that in an improper fraction, the top number is greater than the bottom number. So in other words, in an improper fraction, the numerator of the fraction is greater than the denominator of the fraction. So for example here, if we've got 3 over 2, we see that the bigger number is 3. 3 is in our numerator, the smaller number 2 is in the denominator, so we know that this is an improper fraction. And so with an improper fraction, the value of that fraction is equal to a number that's greater than or equal to 1. So with an improper fraction, the fraction is always equal to a number that's greater than or equal to 1. So to convert this fraction to a decimal, take your calculator, you would hit 3 divided by 2, hit equals, and it's going to give you 1.5. So 3 over 2 is equal to 1.5. 1.5 is greater than or equal to 1. So now let's look at our last example here. Let's look at our mixed numbers. So the mixed number here is 4 3/5. So mixed numbers have two parts. They've got your whole numbers. So this number out front here, which is 4, is the whole number. And they've also got the fraction. So the fraction is just 3/5, or you could say 3 over 5, however you want to say it. So again, mixed numbers have a whole number and a fraction here. And so also about mixed numbers, what you want to know is that a mixed number is always going to be greater than 1. And so that should be pretty easy to remember because it's going to have a whole number out front here. So 4 3/5. So to convert this fraction into, or the mixed number into a decimal, you would just do 3/5 in your calculator. So 3 divided by 5 gives you 0.6, and then you keep the 4 out there. So you would have 4.6 here. So that would be the value of this mixed number. So later in the video, we're going to look more closely at converting fractions into decimals, but just know for now that you can always convert a fraction into a decimal just using your calculator very simply. And so what I want you to see here is the difference between a proper fraction, an improper fraction, and a mixed number. And so a very key point here that's very important for your test is that when you have an improper fraction, you can change it into a mixed number, and you can take a mixed number and change it into an improper fraction. So one skill that we're going to work on here in a minute, but it's a skill that you want to master for the test, is taking an improper fraction and turning that into a mixed number, and taking mixed numbers and turning them into improper fractions. And you want to have that skill down so you can do it very quickly on your test. So to make sure that you have this down, let's look at a few examples here. So I'm going to show you examples of one of the three types of fractions, and I want you to tell me if each example is a proper fraction, an improper fraction, or a mixed number. So let me show you the first example here. So the first example is 2 1/3. So is 2 1/3 a proper fraction, an improper fraction, or a mixed number? Pause the video and try to figure this out. Okay, let's go over this. So 2 1/3 is a mixed number. And the way that you can tell that is because the mixed number has a whole number and a fraction. So the whole number here is the 2, and the fraction is 1/3. So a mixed number is a mix between that whole number and the fraction. So 2 1/3 is a mixed number. So let me show you another example now. So the example is 3/5. So is 3/5 an example of a proper fraction, an improper fraction, or a mixed number? Pause the video and try to figure this out. Okay, so let's go over this. So whenever you see a fraction where the top number is smaller than the bottom number, it's a proper fraction. So this is a proper fraction. So another way to say that is that the numerator is smaller than our denominator, so therefore it's a proper fraction. So 3/5 is a proper fraction. Okay, and so the only one that we haven't shown an example of yet is the improper fraction. So since that's the last one standing here, let me just show you an example of that right now. So any number, again, that's going to have the top number that's bigger than the bottom number is an improper fraction. So an example would be, say, 20 over 9. And so you would know that 20 over 9 is that improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So hopefully you got these down. So now let's look at how to convert a mixed number to an improper fraction and vice versa. So first let's start with a mixed number here. So let me give you a mixed number. Let's do 3 1/2. And so this is our mixed number. So 3 1/2 is a mixed number, and we want to convert that to an improper fraction. So the way that we do it is we take the denominator of our fraction and we multiply it by the whole number, and then we're going to add the numerator. So that's the first step here. So let's do that. So again, we're going to take the denominator and multiply it by the whole number. Then we're going to add the numerator. So the denominator is 2, the whole number is 3. So we multiply the denominator by the whole number. So we do 2 times 3, and that's equal to 6. And so what comes next? So again, the first step, you multiply the denominator by that whole number, which we did here, 2 times 3 equals 6. Then the next step is to add the numerator. So we'll take that 6 and we'll add the numerator. And so that gives us 7. And so the last thing that we do here is we take that 7 and we write it over the original denominator. So the original denominator in our mixed number was 2. So we take that 7 and we write it over 2. So 3.5 is equal to 7 over 2 as a mixed number. So let me show you another example how to do this. Let me clear this out of the road here. So here's one that you can try on your own here. So let's say that we've got 2 and 5/6. So pause the video and try to convert this mixed number into an improper fraction using the method I just showed you. Okay, let's go over how to do this. So we've got our mixed number here, which is 2 and 5/6, and we want to convert that into an improper fraction. So what we do, again, the strategy is we take our denominator, we multiply it by the whole number, we then add the numerator, and then we take that and then we write that over the denominator in our mixed number. All right, so let me write this out for you here and show you how you do it. So again, the steps, you take that denominator and multiply it by the whole number. So let's do that. So we take our denominator, we're going to multiply it by our whole number. Then the next step will be to add 5 to that. So let me just do that right now. We'll put 5 to that. And so let's do the math here. So 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 5 is 17. So the answer here to this part would be 17. So now what's the last step here? So after we've taken the denominator and we multiplied it by the mixed number, or by the whole number, and then we added 5 to that, we end up with 17. The last step is to write that 17 over the denominator in our original mixed number, which is 6. So we have 17 over 6, and so that's our mixed number. So let me show you one more example here, and you can try this at home. So now let's do 1 and 3/5. So pause the video and try to write this mixed number as an improper fraction. Okay, let's go over how to do this one, and let's go over it a little bit quicker now, since you guys are really smart and you guys are starting to get this. So what we do is we take the mixed number, we take the denominator in the mixed number, which is 5, we multiply that by the whole number, so the whole number is 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add our numerator. So the numerator is the 3. So we do 5 times 1, which is just 5, plus 3 is 8. And so then the last step is we take this number, which is 8, and we're going to write that over the denominator in the original mixed number. So the denominator in the original mixed number, again, is the 5 here. So that's all we did. All we do is we take that, again, to recap, we take the denominator in the fraction, which is 5, we multiply it by the whole number, which is 1, then we add the numerator, which the numerator was our 3, and that's how we got our 8. And so then the last step is we just go back to the mixed number, we look at what the denominator was, the denominator is 5, so we write that 8 over 5, and that's how you do a mixed number to an improper fraction. So that's how you go from a mixed number to an improper fraction. But how do you go from an improper fraction to a mixed number? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you an example here, and don't worry about these words. So some of you might be reading all these words on the screen and freaking out. Don't worry about it. We're going to go through it step by step. It's really not that hard. It might look harder than it is right now, but pretty soon you're going to see how easy it actually is. So we've got an improper fraction here as our example. 7 over 2 is an improper fraction. And again, it's an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than our denominator, so that's how we know it's an improper fraction. So we want to take this improper fraction and we want to convert it into a mixed number. So what do the mixed number and the improper fraction have in common? So they both have a denominator. They share the same denominator. So I'm just going to write denom to abbreviate for denominator, or you know what, I'll write it out here. So we've got denominator. So the mixed number and the improper fraction, they both have the same what? They both have the same denominator. So the 7 over 2 is our improper fraction, and we want to convert it into a mixed number. Right off the bat, we know that the mixed number is going to have a denominator of 2 because our improper fraction has a denominator of 2. So again, what is a mixed number? So here's an example of a mixed number again, because this is really important that we understand this. So the mixed number has a whole number and it's got a fraction. So in any mixed number, there are 3 different numbers. It's got a whole number, it's got a numerator, and it's got a denominator. So now let me get rid of that little example here, and let's focus on the first example, which was 7 over 2. So 7 over 2 is an improper fraction, and we want to convert it to a mixed number. Mixed numbers have a whole number, a numerator, and a denominator. But we already know what the denominator of the mixed number is going to be. So since our improper fraction has a denominator of 2, the mixed number that we get is going to also have a denominator of 2, and that's because, again, the mixed number and the improper fraction have the same denominator. So the mixed number, it's got that whole number, that denominator, and it's got a numerator. So how do we get the whole number? Well, here's how we do it. So on the screen here it says to get the whole number, you multiply the denominator by a number that gives you a product, this should say product, close to the numerator, but less than the numerator. So this should say product. It gives you a product close to the numerator, but less than that numerator. So let's get the whole number here. So we've got 7 over 2. So how do we do it? Well, we want to take our denominator. So the denominator is 2. And we want to multiply it by a number that's going to give us a product that is close to the numerator, but it has to be less than the numerator. So what is our numerator again? So the numerator is 7 here, and the denominator is 2. So we want to take our 2, and we want to multiply it by something that is going to give us a product that's close to 7, but it's got to be less than 7. So let's just look at some 2 times tables here. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 4 is 8. So these are just some times tables here. And so why did I stop at 2 times 4? Does anybody know why? Do you know why I stopped after 2 times 4? Well, the reason is because, remember, we're looking to take this denominator and we want to multiply it by a number so that we get a product that is close to 7, but it has to be something less than 7. So when we did 2 times 4, we got 8. And so 8 is a number it's close to 7, but it's bigger than 7. So we want to get rid of this here. This is not correct. So 2 times 4, the whole number can't be 4 because we're looking for a number that is going to multiply with the denominator to give a product that is close to the numerator, but it has to be less than the numerator. So 8 is greater than 7. So we now have 2 times 3, which is 6. So when we multiply the denominator, which is 2, times 3, the product that we get is 6 here. So 6 is close to the numerator, which is 7, but it's less than 7. So this is going to work here. So the whole number is going to be 3. So we have as our whole number our 3, and we already know that the denominator in our mixed number is 2. And so we know that that denominator is 2 again because we just look at our improper fraction, and the denominator in the improper fraction is 2. Since the mixed number and the improper fraction have the same denominator, when we write our mixed number over here, the denominator is also going to be 2 in that mixed number. So what goes in the numerator right here? Well, all we do is we just do 2 times 3, which is 6. And so then we take our numerator, which was 7, and we just subtract that 6. And that gives us 1. And so our mixed number is 3.5. So what we did here was we took this 7 over 2, which was our improper fraction, and we converted this improper fraction to a mixed number, and we got 3.5. So let's look at another example of how to do this now. So this time, let's do 8 over 3. So the improper fraction is 8 over 3. So convert that into a mixed number. So pause the video and try to take this improper fraction and convert it into a mixed number. So hopefully you just had a chance to try that. So 8 over 3. So what we want to do here is we want to focus on the denominator. So the denominator is 3. So we want to multiply 3 by some number, and we want to get a product that is close to 8, but it's got to be less than 8. So let's try a few different things here. So let's try, so 3 times 1 is just going to be 3. We already know that. So we've got 3 times 2 here, and 3 times 2 gives us 6. And so what about 3 times 3? 3 times 3 gives us 9. Okay, and so we know that 9 is greater than 8, so 3 is not going to work. So the whole number is not going to be 3, because if you do 3 times 3, you get 9, and that's bigger than 8. So the whole number is going to be 2. So, and the reason is because when you do 3 times 2, you get 6. So 6 is a number that's close to 8, but it's less than 8. Whereas when we did 3 times 3, we got 9. 9's too big. So the whole number is our 2. And what about our denominator? Well, the denominator is just 3 here. And remember, when we look at our improper fraction, we see that the denominator is 3. So if we go over here to our mixed number, we know that the denominator is also going to be 3 because the denominator of the mixed number and the improper fraction, they're both the same. So here we've got one more number to figure out. So we need to know what this numerator is. So what we do is we look at our numerator here in the improper fraction. So the numerator of the improper fraction is 8. So let me write that. No, I won't write that here. Let me write it right here. So we've got our 8 right here. And so now what we want to do is subtract. So we do 3 times 2, which gives us 6. So we do 8 minus 6, which is equal to 2. So 8 minus 6 is equal to 2. So the answer is 2 2/3. So let me do one more example here of how to convert an improper fraction into a mixed number. So let's try 11 over 13 now. So we want to go the other way around. So let's do 13 over 11. 13 over 11 now. So take 13 over 11, which is an improper fraction, and convert that into a mixed number. So pause the video and try to do that now. Okay, let's go over this. So we've got 13 over 11, which is an improper fraction. So what we want to do here is, if we consider our 11 times tables, we see that 11 times 1 is 11, and 11 times 2 gives us 22. So 11 times 2 gives us 22. 22 is greater than 13, so right off the bat here, we know that 2 cannot be the whole number in the mixed number, and the reason is because when you do 11 times 2, you're going to get a number that is greater than 13. So this is out here. So the whole number is just 1 in this case. So our whole number is 1. And what is our denominator? So the denominator is 11. And so how do we know that? Well, we just look here at our improper fraction. If the improper fraction has a denominator of 11, since the mixed number and the improper fraction have the same denominator, we know that in the mixed number, the denominator will be 11. So we've got the whole number and we've got our denominator. We just need to get the numerator. So what we do is we go back to our improper fraction. We see that 13 is in the numerator. So then we look at our mixed number and we do 11 times 1, which is just 11. So we do 13 minus 11, which gives us 2. And so that is the number that we put in here for our numerator, which is just 2. So 1 and 2 over 11. So, you know what, let's look at one more example here, because I want to really make sure that you guys are getting this down. So here's one more example here. So this time let's do 17 over 3. So this is a good one. So you've got an improper fraction of 17 over 3. Pause the video and try to convert that into a mixed number, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so here's a great problem here. So we've got 17 over 3. And so again, what we want to do is we want to find the whole number and the mixed number first. So right off the bat, let's think of some numbers that we could possibly multiply 3 by here. So let's try something bigger, like let's try maybe 3 times 7. So 3 times 7 is 21. So that's going to be a little bit too high, because 21 is greater than 17. So we want to get a product that is less than 17 here. So 7 is going to be a little bit too high. So let's just go down 1. So let's do 3 times 6. So 3 times 6 is 18. So 6 won't be the whole number. 6 is a little bit too big here, because when you do 3 times 6, you get 18. 18 is greater than 17, which isn't what we want. We want a number that is lower than 17. It's got to be close to 17, but lower than 17. So we tried 7, we tried 6, so let's bump this down by 1. So let's do 5. So 3 times 5 equals 15. And so look what we've got here. So 15 is a number that's close to 17, but it's less than 17. So 5 is perfect. So 5 is going to be the whole number. So in our mixed number here, the whole number is going to be 5. So what is the denominator? So the denominator is going to be 3. So the reason is because the improper fraction has a denominator of 3, and so therefore the mixed number will also have a denominator of 3, because the mixed number and the improper fraction share the same denominator. So now how do we figure out what the numerator is? Well, what we do is we go back and we look at the numerator and the improper fraction, which is 17. And so we want to take that 17, and so then we do 3 times 5, which is 15. So 17 minus 15 gives us 2. And so that is our numerator. So the mixed number would be 5 2/3. So earlier on in the video, I was talking about how to convert a fraction into a decimal using a calculator. And so that is always going to work. So that's the fast way to do it, and that's the best way to do it. So if you have a fraction and you can't remember what it is equal to as a decimal, you just use that calculator. So for example, let's say 1/5. So if you want to convert 1/5 as a fraction into the decimal, you would just do 1 divided by 5 in your calculator. So you take the calculator, put in 1, hit the division sign, hit 5, hit equals, and it's going to spit out the answer, which is 0.2. So that's always how you're going to want to do it. However, if you don't have a calculator, you're going to have to just know some of these values by memory, because there's not really a good way to do it by hand or to do it in your head. So to convert a fraction into a decimal, you have to either use your calculator, or you just have to understand certain patterns, or at least memorize these numbers here. So I've given you a chart here, and the numbers in this chart are good values to have memorized. So for example, 1/2, that is equal to 0.5. And so that's just something that you definitely want to know. So the most important one in this whole entire chart is definitely the fact that 1/2 equals 0.5. So 1/2 equals 0.5. So definitely, if nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this part of the video, know that 1/2 is equal to 0.5. All right, so also you do need to know, and you should know, that 1/4 is equal to 0.25, 3/4 is equal to 0.75. And so the fourths are usually easy to remember for students because they can just think about quarters. So let's say you see 4 here. So how many quarters are there in $1? Well, $1 is equal to 4 quarters. So what about 1? So we see 1/4. So let's say you've got 1/4. Well, that's equal to 25 cents or 0.25. What about 3/4? So we see 4 here, and right away we should think, well, four quarters are in $1. So what if I've got 3 quarters? How many quarters is that, or how much money is that? So 3 quarters is equal to 0.25. So whenever you see those fourths, just think about quarters. So 1/5 is equal to 0.2, and that's just something that's good to memorize. Then you'll have 2/3, which is equal to 0.666 and a bunch of repeating sixes here. 1/3 is equal to 0.33333 and a bunch of repeating threes, as we see here. Now, here's another nice pattern here to spot here. So 1/10 is equal to 0.1, 2/10 is equal to 0.2, 3/10 or 3/10 is equal to 0.3. And so if we keep going here, right, so if we do 4 divided by 10, 4 divided by 10 would be equal to 0.4. Okay, so what about 5/10? Any guesses as to what 5 divided by 10 is equal to? So if 1/10 is 0.1, 2/10 is 0.2, 3/10 is 0.3, 4/10 is equal to 0.4, then logically if the pattern continues, which it does, then 5/10 is equal to 0.5, and so on and so forth with 6, 7, 8, and 9. All right, and so these are some fraction decimal equivalents that I really recommend you memorize. So add these in your notes, and you can use flashcards or you can just put them down somewhere and then come back and review them every couple days. Just read over the list again and again. But you definitely want to at least know that half is equal to 0.5. You should know these quarter values, what I call the quarters, the 1/4 or 3/4. You should definitely know these ones, and definitely know the rest of them too. They're all good to remember, but the first 3 are definitely the ones that are going to come up most often on your test. In my next video in my GED Math Fractions series, we're going to take a look at how to simplify fractions. I'm going to give you some tricks to use to simplify fractions to get more questions right on the GED test. So make sure you subscribe for that video.